welcome to Florida Focus, a college football podcast. Glad to have you with us here. Of course, there's Brandon, Florida State fan, and we have Chris, a Gator fan. Chris, how are you?
I'm great. Go Gators.
Yeah, go Seminoles on my end. I guess let's just go ahead and dive in. What's on everybody's mind? We really want to talk about the national championship game. It was a classic. ESPN likes to throw around the instant classic terminology. Don't think that falls short here, but Alabama versus Georgia. Let's just kind of go from an SEC perspective. Chris, what was some of your initial thoughts on the game?
Man, it was as a Florida fan, it was one of those like you're excited that an SEC teams are representing, but man, those SEC teams, it was tough. To be honest, like every day I went back and forth, like who do I go for? Who do I hate the most or the least? And so it was a bittersweet because it was good that an SEC team was going to win, so you like that. But man, those SEC teams, it was really tough to watch. But the only thing that made it great or better was the ending. That was a great game, back and forth, back and forth. To see so many different storylines play throughout that was pretty cool to see. And I got my money's worth. Although it was free, but I still got my money's worth.
Right. Well, that's good perspective. Don't know if you've given any thought to this. Would there be any other SEC matchup that would have made the game less hard to cheer for or less hard to watch?
If it was Alabama, maybe Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah, those would probably be it. That's the only way it would be. Because I think out of the West, I like Alabama the least. And out of the East, I like Tennessee the least. So that'd be the only real one that's. But man, Georgia's right behind them. Georgia's right behind Tennessee.
That's a good point, Chris. Yeah, with Georgia being right behind Alabama, I think the biggest tell of that is recruiting. When you look
Yeah.
at how they're taking these 4 and 5 star guys from areas of South Georgia that Florida State, from my perspective, would easily get. To know that the Bulldogs are now taking the guys that should be Seminoles, it's a little scary, especially when we have a coaching change and Georgia's on the upswing. So
Right.
that's an interesting perspective about the SEC and Tennessee. They have a new coach, Jeremy Pruitt, who used to be at Florida State. I'm intrigued to see where they go defensively. Another topic, of course, but appreciate that perspective. A couple
Yeah, and
things to talk
I.
about. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. I was just gonna say it was crazy to see like as a Florida fan, Georgia had done pretty good and then have some good seasons, but they just couldn't get over the hump with Rick, and you're seeing that again in Miami with him. But I think Smart's the guy to take him to the next level, and they almost took him all the way there. So I'm interesting to see if he continues that projection.
It's looking, and from an SEC East fan, give me your perspective on this. It's looking like Georgia Bama, assuming Saban stays there, would be a matchup where you can expect to probably see the next 4 years, or if not, it's their divisions to lose. How do you
Right.
come on that?
I think that um, really in the East, it's Georgia every year going to lose. Florida might make some noise, but I really don't see anyone else. In the West, it's always interesting. Auburn, man, is one of those most frustrating teams to watch because they can beat Alabama handily and then lose to some other teams. It's like if you just play consistently, you could be in the national championship game. You could be there easily, but they're not consistent. So if they finally get a consistent season, maybe. But yeah, like you said, it's Alabama Georgia. It's Alabama Georgia next few years.
And I think it may be good for the SEC, but we also do want the other players to come in. To further your thought on Auburn, this may have been the year that they could have benefited from one less loss.
Yeah,
The committee probably didn't want to take a 3-loss team. In fact, I'm certain of it because they didn't.
yeah, right.
If there was any 3-loss team that ever qualified, it would have been Auburn this season.
Yeah,
And they skipped over them, and we can talk about their Peach Bowl loss to UCF. That's a whole other podcast in
Yeah,
general.
yeah,
Whole lot of emotions wrapped into that. But the title game itself, I thought it was pretty deserving. We can
yeah.
argue about who deserved to be in, whether or not you take Wisconsin or Auburn at 6, or
Ohio
Penn State.
State.
Yeah, Penn State, USC can all argue. But I don't think in the end it would have really mattered because, in my opinion, going into the playoff, they had appropriately ranked Clemson as number 1. And Alabama clearly showed that they still have their number, at least mentally.
Yeah,
It didn't hurt, it didn't hurt Alabama that Deshaun Watson is, sitting on the bench for the Houston Texans.
yeah,
But you also see a team that in Clemson, in my opinion, had the best front 7 in the country. And it looks like they're going to return most of them, which is scary for us.
yeah.
Because that's a game that, they're still in our division in the ACC Atlantic. And I don't see a way that we win that game. So, you look at Alabama, you look at Georgia, you look at Oklahoma, you look at Clemson. I still pretty much feel like the committee got it right. We can talk about the playoff itself later. The biggest thing to me is Ohio State's 31-point loss to an unranked team.
Yeah, yeah. It's
But
good luck. Good luck again doing that.
exactly. You also can't overlook that this is at least the second time the number 4 seed has won it all.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't realize that.
I know at least the first year it happened with Ohio State because they beat Alabama, then Oregon, and then you see Bama doing it again this year. Offhand, I don't know if anyone else has done it.
Yeah,
At least
I haven't
twice.
seen it. Yeah.
So,
How about like Clemson? Like you're the national champions. You're number 1 again, and you go into the playoffs and you see the last team you want to face is Alabama. I felt so bad for Clemson. It's just like really because they were Alabama the year before, seeking revenge. You're hearing all the stuff from the other team, and now they have to see Alabama again sneaking in. And once Alabama got to the 4th spot, I was like, oh, they're beating Clemson. There's no way that they're going to just let Clemson win again. Now they're the underdogs. Now they're the guys that are looking for revenge, and I knew that they were going to at least get into the championship game.
right. And you and I actually differed on that opinion. Because of the front 7 in Clemson, really thought they would carry them all the way. And it, of course, didn't turn out that way for a number of reasons. I think quarterback play for Clemson was one of them. But I just don't think in any normal circumstance you give Nick Saban a month to prepare for a team he's going to lose.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that gets us up to the game itself. We didn't really talk about the Rose Bowl so much, which really was a good game. But the game itself, I'll throw out a couple of notes here for you, Chris, kind of take your initial reaction. Did you know that the longest Alabama pass of the game was the last play of the game?
Really? Trying to think. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
One catch, 41 yards, and a touchdown. He was actually the leading receiver for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah. Did he catch one earlier in the game?
No, sir. That was the only one.
Yeah.
One catch,
Yeah.
41 yards.
That Georgia defensive back. I don't know what the coverage was, but he let him go. But that whole second half, they were just working that guy. I think it was number 4, but they were just working that guy, and I was like, figures it was that guy that made the mistake. I don't know if it's the safety's fault or not, but he was involved in that. Because if you watch that especially last quarter, they were working that cornerback, Georgia's number 4, and every ball that went his direction was caught, or he had a guy that was going behind him or something. And I'm just like, man, I figured it was going to be that guy who was going to blow the game. If anyone's going to do it, I was like, yep, that's him.
And that's unfortunate to see, to know that you're so disciplined the entire game, and to see it. But that's also what defensive coordinators and quarterbacks are attacking as well.
Yeah.
You look at that and you say, okay, well, they're eventually going to break, or they're going to make one bad read. It's going to cost them the game. Florida State had one example of that against Miami this year. You could argue that we probably had Miami beat, but we scored with less than 2 minutes left. They go to drive down, and McFadden, who led the country in interceptions last year, had great coverage the entire game, but with 12 seconds left, blows an outside cut to the pylon.
Yeah.
And, they had to review it, of course, but that cost us the game. And that's the kind of things that they look towards, where can I attack? Who's the weakest spot?
Yeah. And the Alabama, I guess, figured out their weakness, and they exploited it, and they kept going to it over and over. And I was expecting Georgia to take him out or adjust somehow, and they didn't. They just let him beat him.
Yeah, and at the worst possible time, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Another stat that I found interesting is that both teams threw the same number of passes, 32.
Huh.
Alabama, they split it up, of course. Hurts, who we tend to see a very clear pattern for, only threw 8 passes. And Tua, and if you want to tackle the last name, go right ahead.
Forget it, man.
I tried even practicing the name, and I'm still too scared to even try.
Yeah, I same here. I'm like Tua Talladega Nights. I don't know. It's something like that.
He threw 24. Alabama had no rushing touchdowns, so they all came off the arm of Tua.
Oh. I wonder when that's the last time that's happened. I wonder when.
Well, especially if you think back to all the running backs they've had.
Right.
Yeah,
2 Heisman Trophy winners recently.
Absolutely. It's hard to even know. I mean, there were specific times in Alabama that Nick Saban refused to throw.
Right.
When he had, I think it was a 2009 game versus South Carolina. He didn't even want to throw when South Carolina came within a score. Late in the game. And he just ran the Wildcat every single play.
Well, then we wasn't messing around.
He just said, Ingram, this is your game. Just take it.
Yeah. Right.
So, interesting one there. Back to the pattern of Jalen Hurts. Do you think that was the right call to take him out of the game?
I mean, looking back, you have to say yes. But at the time, I was like, no. But what guts to make that call? You as many championship games as he's had, and that guy has, I think, only lost one or twice prior to that game as a starter, and to pull him halfway through the game is really, you're down 13-0. It's not like you can't come back with him. 2 scores, get a turnover. You're not that far out. So at the time, I'm like, no, that's not a good decision. But that's why he gets paid the big bucks, and I'm, recording a podcast.
Exactly. Well, I think there's something to that as well. You look at a guy who I found out made his phone background the last shot of him losing at Clemson, who this entire year has eyed the national championship game.
Right.
A guy who took you there, and you didn't have a lot of close competition except for Mississippi State, but still stayed resilient.
Right.
And you see a guy that continues to persevere and just play only his own game. And then with 2 quarters left, your head coach decides that's not the game he wants to play.
Right.
Now, was it the best decision? As you mentioned, looking back, you can't argue with it.
Right.
But I weirdly just, I don't figure it out, and I'm honestly mad that it worked.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I look at Nick Saban and I just say, I thought I'd seen it all from him.
Right.
I really did. And he still was able to surprise me and win a 5th at Alabama and 6th overall, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But I think maybe the reason he was looking at that was Jalen Hurts has shown a pattern I think a lot of people have caught on to, maybe Georgia, is that he'll look for Calvin Ridley, and if he's not open, he's going to run.
Right. He's good at it. He's good at running.
Yes. Ridley, by the way, only had 4 catches for 32 yards, and Hurts had 6 rushes for 47 yards, and of course that's all first half stats.
I think Ridley's brother, who plays for Georgia, had more yards in that game. Yeah. His younger brother, I believe. Younger brother. He didn't do much during the season, but broke out during that game.
How about that?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Well, okay, here's my question to you. Say the game plays out like it does, except Alabama doesn't score on that last crazy play. Is it still the right move by Saban?
That's really good insight. I think, personally, overall, it was not the decision that was correct. The
Okay.
reason I say that is because you still see a lot of freshman mistakes from Tua.
Yeah.
He still had bad clock management.
The play right before the game winning.
There you go.
Like you
Perfect
can't take
example.
that sack. Yeah.
16-yard loss. You absolutely can't do that in overtime. There was one time they had to burn a timeout because he almost ran the clock out
Yeah.
and had to, didn't want to take a delay of game. And those are the things that you don't want to be working through in the second half of the national championship.
Yeah. Exactly.
He made that choice, and that's what he had to live with.
Yeah.
He lost the timeout, and he lost 16 yards in crucial points where it could have lost in the game.
Right.
You also really don't want a freshman quarterback dictating the flow of the game at that point. And the reason I say that is because he's going to go to the guys that he normally goes to on the practice field, which are the other freshmen.
Yeah.
In this
Yeah.
case, of course, it pans out. There was a 41-yard TD on the play you kind of broke down previously. But if we were to say that wasn't the play, and let's just say he gets picked off, for instance, he misreads it or he doesn't look off the safety, then you get a totally different perspective.
Yeah.
To me, I think the best example, and yes, a Florida State fan's going to know this one, is when Florida played Oklahoma in 2008. You look at the end of that game, Florida is up by a possession. I don't know if it's 7 or 3. I can't remember. Tim Tebow thinks he hears a whistle and stops playing.
That's right.
All of a sudden, he realizes the play isn't over, and he wisely just scrambles away and throws the pass away, and Florida's able to get out of the possession without any damage. I kind of see those both as turning points. Excuse me.
Gotcha.
If
Okay.
Tebow had taken a sack there and Florida loses the game, it changes the whole complexion. In this example, in my opinion, whether or not the pass was complete, I don't think Tua redeemed himself, and I still think it was the wrong call.
Okay. Well, here's my counter to that. I don't know really what the right answer is. My counter is: do they even get close without Tua? Because he comes right out of the gate in the first drive and comes on the field, bam, 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 scores, and he puts more points on the board, and he got them to overtime. I don't know if the way Jalen Hurts is playing, if they even get that close.
Also a valid point. I think to counter that as well, and maybe to kind of further that conversation, I think that freshmen have a mental clock that typically runs out.
Yeah.
I think that you kind of tell your quarterback, okay, this is what we're going to play. This is how we're going to run it. And we want you to be comfortable as possible. A lot of that novelty is going to wear off, and you're going to start to see struggles.
Yeah.
Now, maybe one half of football is not enough to see enough of that. He did throw one interception.
Yeah.
But in the sack, he made a couple of mistakes that are about a game's worth. But he squeezed it into and a half.
To a half.
Right. Are they as close? I kind of side with you on the fact that, down 13-0 with Jalen Hurts, able to run the ball. Until it gets down more than that, you're down 16-0, you're down 20-0, then your run kind of gets limited.
Right.
You start passing, you just double Calvin Ridley, and Jalen Hurts is kind of taken out of the equation.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting to look at it. But man, what a game! What a game! As an SEC fan, I absolutely loved everything about it. As a non-SEC fan, outside looking in, what was your perspective on it?
Well, I think there would be a lot of non-SEC that would more tend to tune it out. I'm not in that pool for a lot of reasons. In that this game, aside from the recruiting I mentioned earlier, has little effect on Florida State. If we've already lost recruits to Georgia, there's nothing we can do about it now. So, no sense crying over spilled milk, kind of deal. And this is the pinnacle. It would be unfair of an SEC fan that's not Auburn in 2013 to say, I'm not going to watch it because it's not my team and it's Florida State.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give them their due. I certainly have my questions about Nick Saban.
Right. Now, another question I want to think about. Someone threw this out. I know we have to get to the next segment, but who's better, Bear Bryant or Nick Saban?
I'll give you an initial thought on that. I feel I probably would need to look up some of Bear Bryant's.
Right.
statistics and what exactly he did.
Right.
The biggest thing I always go to with Nick Saban is that he's doing this in a completely different era
Yeah.
for several reasons. Number one, he's going. Well, let me ask this question first. Can you roughly give me a time frame of when Bear Bryant was a coach for Bama?
Uh,
We're talking 70s,
I think earlier than that.
60s, 70s.
I mean, we can look it up, but yeah, I think it was.
We'll go with
I think
that.
it's earlier than
What I was
earlier
going
than
to get
seven.
towards is, was there integration at the time? I'm sure there
Right.
was. I don't know if it was accepted, and that's another issue. But Saban's doing it in the mega age of technology.
Yeah.
You look at a time, let's just say 60s, 70s, 80s, even into the 90s. There was no internet. There was no YouTube. So you go to look at a recruit, he pops in a VHS tape of his highlights, and that's what you judge him on.
Yeah.
You physically go to his school, you recruit from there. You had to check a newspaper to see what the score was from yesterday's game sometimes because it wasn't on cable.
Right.
So you're working in a time when Alabama, Notre Dame, Michigan, all of USC, all the big name schools are the ones that kids know about want to go to.
Yeah.
You would never ever hear of a day when Baylor would win the Big 12. You would never think that Wake Forest would ever win the ACC. These were just unheard of things. These top 10 schools constantly got the best recruits and constantly wanted to go to these schools. Alabama was no exception.
Mm-hmm.
So Bear Bryant, in my opinion, was able to still get all of the best players. And I don't want to hear a lot of backlash from Alabama fans on this, but what I do want to say is, let's just, for the sake of argument, say Bama as a school has the same amount of championships from Bear Bryant and the same amount from Nick Saban.
Yeah.
I'm going to hear from them if that's not the case. That's fine. But let's just say they have 5 each. I have to give the nod to Nick Saban because he's done it in a game that's totally different, that's much more involved, and you have to play longer.
My initial thought is, well, I know that I physically watched Bear Bryant, so he has that against him. But Saban's playing in an age where the players are stronger, faster. They're in the SEC is a lot harder. There's more games during the season, and now we're having playoffs. And for him to still dominate like he does is, and he did it with 2 teams, LSU and Alabama. I think just you have to just really consider it, if not give it to him already.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we're both in agreement on that because of some of the same reasons. You know, the statue being there, you probably should wait till he retires, but can't fault them for that. Florida State did that for Bowden retired.
Yeah.
I get one. Well, if we have just a couple more minutes before we move on to our topic, I feel like a lot of this talk was Bama focused. Just a couple of thoughts about the Georgia side of it. Did you have any thoughts on, did Bama win or Georgia lose? Or excuse me, I've reversed that. Did Bama win or Georgia lose? No, I got it right.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I thought about that. I thought about that. Georgia seemed to kind of, especially the quarterback, kind of. I don't want to throw out the word choke at the end, but he kind of got a little tight. Like they weren't throwing it around and as loose as a team altogether. It's tough. I think just with that decision to put 2 in, you got to say Bama won it. But I mean, I could see an argument saying that Georgia lost it, but they were only up 13.
Yeah, and to further your point,
I would say when Alabama scored at the beginning, Georgia came right back and threw a long bomb. I just think Alabama won it more.
That's exactly what I was going to go to, was that long pass. Now, the other thing you could point to if you're a Georgia fan was, hey, that was our offense for the second half.
Yeah,
well,
true.
That's a good answer, but that was really it. If you take away that long pass, there was nothing else done.
Yeah.
I believe they had I was going to talk about the kickers here in a second, but didn't Georgia have a missed kick?
No, Alabama had 2 missed kicks.
2. Okay, so that's what I was thinking of. Well, that's a good starting point to go where I am. How is Nick Saban, all of his glory, not learn from Bobby Bowden to get a better kicker? This doesn't make sense to me. I
Every
see this
Alabama fan I talk to,
repeatedly, and I don't
yeah,
understand it.
every Alabama fan I talk to says the same thing. Like, if we could just get a kicker, if we could just get a kicker, I'm like, well, one, you're already winning. What do you mean if we just get a kicker? But two, I understand. Yeah, their frustration is they just for I don't know, whatever reason they can't get kickers that can kick. We they had Eddie Pinheiro who ended up going to Florida sign, and he was pretty good at Florida, but they just I don't know what their problem is. They just cannot get it going.
I don't, and it's not even like, okay, we're Alabama, we just shouldn't even try. It's he just shows up at your doorstep, and okay, I'll kick for Bama if I'm the best
Right,
one. Florida State, to brag on my school a little bit, we've had 4 Luke Rosa winners,
right,
and the reason for that is because Bobby Bowden was tired of losing because of missed kicks.
right.
He
Yeah,
said, okay, I'm coming to a school that was a women's college until the mid 40s. I've got a culture to develop.
yeah,
And he said, I'm going to get some speed. And he started to actually start beating teams like Nebraska, Ohio State, and Michigan. But he was losing close games to Miami because of missed
yeah.
kicks. We all know about those, the wide rights. There's
Right,
even a wide left thrown in there. But he also made a decision that I'm going to take advantage of a whole entire part of the game that no one else even cares about, which is special teams. So you start to see fake punts. You start to get better kickers. You start to see him take advantage of that. Frank Beamer kind of followed his steps in the 80s at Virginia Tech. Beamer ball, right?
right.
Saban just doesn't care about that aspect of the game, I guess. Now, I can't speak to their punt returns. I don't know how their kickoffs go. But to me, you would just think you get a guy who just doesn't miss.
Right. I just, I mean, on one hand, you're like, what is he doing? What is he not doing? On the other hand, he's still winning. So, I don't know if we have much room to talk, but
Well, he's clearly frustrated about it, right?
yeah,
Now
he
in this
is.
in this case, it did cost you a regular. It cost you a regulation win. Okay, so
Right,
your kicker misses in the regulation, you win in overtime. Could have cost you a national championship, but it didn't.
right.
But something that will always flash in my mind is the year that Alabama played LSU in the national championship game.
Yeah,
LSU struggled, obviously. Only crossed midfield once. They ended up being shut out. At the end of the game, it's 15-0 because Bama has kicked 5 field goals. I believe they missed some in that game too. I could be wrong.
probably.
And Trent Richardson, kind of with no time left and it's meaningless, just kind of skirts to the outside and scores a touchdown to make it 21-0.
Yeah,
Okay, well, the game's clearly over. He gets the ice bucket. Well, they go out and line up for the extra point, and the kicker misses the extra point. And Nick Saban is on the sideline livid, yelling at a point where the game's clearly over.
right.
But you're still frustrated about your kicking game? That, to me, if it's not a sign that you just don't care, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I know that you can make an argument. Do they need a kicker? But I know his stress level would go down if they had a kicker. That's for sure.
Well, you give me 5 minutes in a room with him, I can convince them the need for one. But
Yeah,
if you score and have the defense he does, then I kind of get it.
yeah.
I give you a pass, Nick Saban. You're allowed.
Yeah,
All right. Well, that's kind of our take on the national championship. Georgia versus Alabama. I don't know. What do you feel? Top 10, top 20, just an instant classic? Is it even worth ranking?
it's got to be up there. I don't know if in my I guess my viewing. I know there's probably more exciting games prior to me being born, but just I guess we'll say common era, for lack of a better term. That Texas USC game. I don't know. It's gonna be real hard to beat that one with Vince Young. But this one's up there. This one is up there. I think easily top 10, easily.
Okay. Very good. I think the Texas USC is kind of the default,
Yeah.
maybe the measuring stick of national title games.
Right.
That one had the marquee coaches, it had the marquee players. It
Yeah.
had 2
High
Heisman winners and a Heisman runner-up.
Right. Everywhere. Yeah.
So, good call. Hope everyone appreciates our perspective on that. Now to move on to the topic and why everybody's actually come to listen to us today. And that is something a little off the board again, so we appreciate you guys tuning in. We're going to discuss the top 5 actors who have portrayed Batman. All right. Now, Chris, I'm going to let you kind of go ahead and break down the choices we're going to choose from, because there's going to be different categories this kind of falls into. So why don't you kind of break it down for our audience and tell us what we're looking at here as far as choices for Batman?
Well, we went with there's several different. I guess people have played Batman. We're going from TV shows to direct to DVD movies, and then of course the theatrical releases. And what we're going to do today is just talk about the theatrical released Batman movies. Now there are some Batman serials that were released back in the 40s that were played in some theaters, but that's more really it was more of a TV show. So what we're really going to focus on is the Batman that have been we've seen in the actual theatrical released movies. And now there's, I think from my calculations, 8 to choose from. We're going to do the Fave 5 from those 8. You could, like I said, there's some serials that were released in the 40s, so you could maybe make a case for 9, but no one was alive in the 40s. So that's probably not going to happen. So we have 8 to choose from. And I think our top 3 are probably going to be very, very similar, but I'm interested to see what the 4 and 5s are.
Okay. Yeah, it's and the reason that we're both so passionate about this is we have our own reasons. For me personally, I'll go ahead and go with this. This probably isn't something we kind of coordinated, Chris, but maybe we'll dive into this for just a couple minutes. Batman to me sticks out as a superhero because he has no superpowers.
Yes.
That to me is unique, and that makes him quite literally head and shoulders above everyone else who kind of accepted their destiny as it is. Batman made himself.
Yeah.
Now, the money comes into play. You can talk about his personality, his childhood, and he has his demons to exercise, of course. That's literally where his Bat persona comes from. But to me, I've always liked how he's balanced the duality of being a man.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts to you on why you like him, or even if he's your favorite?
Yeah, well, people ask me, am I a Marvel guy, DC guy? And I say, like, overall, I prefer Marvel over DC. But DC has produced my single favorite character in Batman. And I really like Batman many reasons. I like the duality of this vigilante saving people who's dark and brooding at night, but then you see him as Bruce Wayne and another whole face, and we all can relate to that. We all have these masks, and like this is who we are in front of people, but this is who we really are. I like that, but honestly, it comes down to that's the only superhero that I could realistically actually become. Now, and there's not like what are the chances of me getting bit by a radioactive spider
Right.
or mutating into something where I can heal myself or teleport? Like I'm not an alien from outer space. I'm not, but like conceivably, I could fall into some money in training. I could. That's not going to happen, but that's a little more like okay. I can kind of get on board with that. I can kind of get on board with someone doing that, as opposed to your X-Men or Superman or whatnot. So that's kind of the reason why I like that. It's a little more grounded, even though it's ridiculous that a guy is dressing up as a bat and is a millionaire. As crazy as that sounds, it's a little bit more grounded. So that's why I liked it.
It does actually relate somehow. It is somewhat attainable. So
Yeah.
I think we're on the same page there. All right. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and start with my number 5, and we'll kind of rotate here. So out of the choices that were given, my number 5 Batman is Val Kilmer.
Okay.
I know if I did this correctly, he only did one movie as Batman.
Yep.
I understand he's a pretty hard actor to work with. Now, with
Yeah.
all the Batmans, I tend to see that they, in a way, favor either the Batman character or Bruce Wayne.
Right.
For me, with Val Kilmer, the reason I put him at 5 is for me it was hard to tell. I wasn't sure with the stoic persona and the facial expressions he had, and with his on-screen play with Nicole Kidman. To me, it was hard to buy him one way or the other.
Yeah,
That's why I put him so low on the list.
they kind of faded or blend into one.
That's a very good synopsis, and while I thought he did good with both, he didn't do great at either.
I lost you again.
All right, so that's my number 5, Chris. Go ahead.
Sorry, I lost you. Gotta cut it. Hello.
That's my number 5, Chris.
Okay, so mine is. Some might say this is cheating, but it's not. This is Kevin Conroy. He was the voice of the animated Batman, and now there was a show in the '90s which I grew up loving, the animated series of Batman. But there was a theatrically released movie, an animated one called Batman: Mask of the Phantasm in I believe '93, and I saw that movie maybe a couple times when I was younger, so I don't really remember the movies per se. But he was in that movie, but I really enjoyed him because he when you hear Batman's voice, that's the voice I think of is him, and that's mainly from the show, the animated series. And he's been in some other direct to DVD movies, but he technically counts because there was one theatrically released movie in '93 called Mask of the Phantasm, and I think last year there was a Killing Joke movie that was released in select theaters, which he was the voice of Batman as well. So he technically fits in, but I can kind of see if someone would disagree with that. But he was the voice. When I think of Batman, I think of that voice, just that commanding. This is how things are going to be. No wavering in that voice, and always I really enjoyed how the Batman they portrayed in the animated series always seemed like he outthinks people. And you could say, what's Batman's superpowers? Is it his money? Is it his training? I believe it's his mind, and you see that in the animated series and in the movies as well. It's his mind. He's going to outthink everybody, and just I really appreciate his voice acting in those movies.
And I like that they actually captured the idea of the mind play because I feel like the movies sometimes fell short of that. So he
Yeah.
actually made my honorable mention. So good choice. Excellent. So moving on to number 4 for me, and I suppose I could have put movie titles to these, but I feel like most people are familiar enough with the Batmans I don't need to. Number 4 would be Sir George Clooney. Uh,
Ah,
George Clooney probably acted in what most people consider the worst Batman movie that there
with the old bat nipples, yes.
was.
Yeah.
The costume faux pas. You had Batgirl Alicia Silverstone, who didn't pan out as an actress, in my opinion. He tried to play off of all of the cartoon effects, but with real life characters. However, the reason he beats out Val Kilmer to me was actually was a better actor, but more importantly, he made a better Bruce Wayne.
Yes. Yeah.
He kind of played that billionaire persona better than Val Kilmer did, and was able to still balance the idea. You look at so many points of that movie, and I just start laughing when he thinks about bringing out the bat card. Never leave home without it.
Oh
You
goodness.
realize that movie had just hit a different point, and I'm glad they stopped this '90s series when they did. But you bring in that person, that cute guy from ER. You get the female audience engaged. I got to give him some props for that at least.
That movie, man, it was weird. It's like the '60s Batman, but set in like Tim Burton's reality, and it was so weird. So because it was playing off the other three films, like it was building, but then you see that first Batman, and then that one, you're like, what is going on here? And right in the middle of it, George Clooney.
All right, yeah, it's tough for me to go that high, and I realize a lot of true Batman uh, specialists or altruistic fans will certainly disagree with that choice, and I understand why. But to me, and it's probably a little bit of nostalgia too. In the '90s when it came out,
Right.
there weren't a lot of Batman options to be had, and lo and behold, there you get it. So I'm gonna stick with it. I'm still good with the 4, but I certainly understand
Your
why
list.
not.
It's your list, yeah. All right, my four is good old Adam West. Rest in peace. And he was the star of the '60s Batman TV show, and they had a movie that came out, and I have that movie, and I watched it so many times, and I loved it growing up. Looking back, I'm like, this is ridiculous. Oh, this is ridiculous. But what I love about him in that movie, but him in particular, this movie is just over the top, super campy. I mean, from the shark repellent to him running around what seemed like 5 minutes with a bomb, I'm like, there's no way this bomb is not blown up yet. From the plot of the evil of the Joker and all his people, like dehydrating people and rehydrating them, it was just so weird. Yet Adam West, he did this with a TV show too, but in this movie in particular, he was so serious. He took that role so serious. And that's why Burt Ward, who played Robin, Cesar Romero played the Joker. They all were so serious in this ridiculous movie. And I loved it. I ate it up. How he was just so, from when he was Bruce Wayne, when he was Batman, everything was just, there's a sense of urgency in everything he said and everything he did, and I just loved it. I'm like, are you kidding me? It's clearly a fake shark, and you have shark repellent. But hey, you're playing it up, man. You are playing it up, and I'll give you credit for that.
One of the greatest moments, and I'm going to tag along here and give you some feedback because he was my number 3 choice.
Okay.
Some other reasons why I put him up there. A lot of it's going to cross over. You know, he's carrying the bomb, and I certainly can't blow up the ducks.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
There was an element of humanity to it, but I also found out that this movie was released after or just into season 2 of the TV series to drum up viewership, and so that's another way to kind of prove your point of taking it seriously. Was they wanted more viewers on TV, and they thought that the TV series itself maybe a little more attention. So let's make a movie about it, and you get insight into Comrade Kitka, and you get the accent, which as a young boy, it's kind of pretty. I can get along with that. All of the C for Catwoman and the
Right.
Biff Pow. You're right. It does have an element of very childish realizations, but maybe that's what makes it attainable.
Yeah. It was perfect. My cousin Mary and I, we would watch the TV shows on like TV Land when we were real little. And I was Batman and she was Batgirl. We'd run around the house all the time just pretending to be superheroes and fighting. And so it has a soft spot in my heart, that show, and leading into the movie as well. And it plays to the kids, but like, hey, yeah, I know this is crazy, but we're going to take this serious too. And I really love that about that movie and about Adam West.
Excellent. So yeah, like I said, Adam West was my 3. I'll let you kind of go into your number 3, if you will, unless you want to add anything else about Adam West.
Okay. This is very, very controversial pick for a lot of people. And that is Batfleck. Ben Affleck.
Wow.
I know. And a lot of people, when the news came out about him, it was a lot of hashtag not my Batman, A lot of people hating on him. And I get it. Coming off of Daredevil, if you've never seen the Ben Affleck Daredevil, don't see it. Because it is a bad movie. And so I get why people are upset about them. But you have to remember, a lot of people flipped out when Heath Ledger was cast as Joker. A lot of people flipped out when Keaton was cast as Batman originally. So, but at that time in his career, he was on the up and up. He had some really good movies prior to getting cast as Batman. Okay, I'm on board with that. If nothing else, he's going to play a great Bruce Wayne. But he, to me, killed it in Batman vs Superman. I loved all the scenes he was in, especially the Batman scenes. It showed this dark, he was just ticked off at the world, ticked off at Superman, ticked off, and he just had it. And you just see this, I'm going to do whatever it takes attitude to succeed. And the scenes that he's in, especially that warehouse scene in there, insane. insane. And I think he is a great choice, and I think he's one of my favorite. That's why he's one of my favorite Batman.
So take that, naysayers. You heard it here.
But
Okay.
if you watch have you read the Dark Knight comics or the Year One comics? Um, Even the animated series, that's really close to um, that adaptation. It's just dark, brooding, muscular. I'm going to just beat you to a pulp, Batman. Which I really, really loved seeing in that movie.
And it's really hard to capture some of the non-perfect qualities of Batman, and that's perhaps what you can probably justify as this. We'll talk about some of the comics where Batman has his back broken.
Right,
I was kind of surprised they actually did it in the film, but of all the characters that are superheroes, I think Batman's the one you could probably do that for the reasons we talked about. He's somehow the most attainable and could be me.
yeah,
And
right,
but on the other hand, you don't want your hero to be not to be cliche, not to be that broken. You don't
right.
want your hero to look that weak, and so it's a risky move.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite parts of that movie in particular, that movie I liked it, but a lot of people didn't like Batman vs Superman, and a lot of less people liked Justice League. But in Batman vs Superman, that one scene towards the beginning when Superman's fighting Zod and everything's just crashing down and people are running away from the buildings, and Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne is just running towards all the stuff. It's just powerful stuff seeing him, and like you see the look in his eyes, like I don't care about myself right now. I want to go towards whatever's causing that to see it, to see what I can do, to see what's going on. And that's Batman. That's Bruce Wayne. That is he did a great job of portraying that idea of like I'll do whatever it takes to get the job done, even if it's running right into trouble.
No fear, gotta love it.
Yeah.
Excellent. So moving on to number two for me. I don't know if this fits in any kind of controversial category, and I think some people might agree. I'm gonna pick Michael Keaton as my Batman. He did do two films. Chris, you had mentioned controversially for the first one, and was it 89 or 90? Does that sound right?
89. 89, I believe. Yeah.
For the first one, and oddly enough, I like that Batman kind of ruined his career for a little bit.
Yeah.
This sounds odd to say, but if you look at Star Wars, for instance, Harrison Ford was the only one that kind of survived it.
Right.
Uh, Dorothy Hamill did a few small things when Harry Met Sally, etc. Mark Hamill did nothing until he was the voice of the Joker, which we won't
Right.
get into today. But very little acting.
Right.
He's Luke Skywalker forever. Han Solo, Harrison Ford, was kind of the exception. He kind of made Indiana Jones. He wanted to make a lot of other movies. And I like that after Batman, Keaton did some things. He was able to kind of maintain acting in the 90s, but he took a long hiatus before he made his return. And that to me kind of captures the idea that he, in the mind of fans, did something right. He was
Yeah.
able to take the role. He was able to adapt to Tim Burton's adaptation, which a lot of fans disagreed with. Comic-Con even banned him, I believe, for his
Yeah.
interpretation of Batman. It was
Heard that.
so far away from the comics. But Keaton himself didn't flinch. He still went into a very dark Batman who, Tim Burton's mind, that's an interesting journey in itself.
Yeah.
You go against a Joker who's very song and dance. You look at the Joker who even has a name. Don't know if in the comics you can relate to that. Chris, you can probably weigh in on that. Do you think
Jack Napier.
Jack Napier?
I don't
Right.
think if any other comics have his name. I'll look into
And
that.
this movie chooses to personalize him a little bit more. I don't know. He made it. He continued to do things. Again, I feel like some of these votes are with our heart. But my wife has a Ford Mustang, and whenever we put the hood down, it's a collapsible convertible top. We always say shields. And that's only from the second movie, where he has the bloop, bloop, the remote control.
Yeah.
He locks it up. Doesn't prove to be successful, by the way.
Right.
But he has a security system for the Batmobile. And I liked him. The second movie was just way more dark and
Very dark.
made it his own. So that's kind of my take. I don't know if there's much more to add to that.
Well, that's gonna be my one. So I don't know if you want to talk about it now or save it to the end. 'Cause I think your one is my two. But we'll go ahead and tell you. I'll talk about it since it's my one.
Okay.
Yeah, just the idea of taking at the time a comedian. He was in a bunch of comedies, and for him to be that, I don't know what it was. It hit me maybe at the right time. I was a young kid watching that. And I remember having the VHS tape. Yes, VHS.
Right.
Look it up if you don't know about it. And it has just the symbol on it. It's like the gold symbol. And I was like, "What is this?" And I watched that so many times, and just the way he just portrayed Batman. His Bruce Wayne, not my favorite, but the Batman, where he was just so calm the whole time, and almost like he had, especially the first one more than the second, he almost just looked annoyed at like the criminals, annoyed at the Joker, like you're wasting my time. I'm going to defeat you at the end. Just that confidence he had.
Mm.
He always knew what to do when, and just the suit. That's my favorite Batmobile that he was in, and just like I said, it was just this confidence he had walking around, taking everyone out. Oh, you're a clown here. Let me give you this piece of dynamite to blow you up next. Um, it was just that constant. I know what to do. I'm going to outsmart you. I've already outsmarted you before this conflict has begun. I just really like that about him, and just the way it's those eyes, that look he gives people. Like, I've already won. I've already figured you out. Let's just do this and get this over with. And I really like that about Keaton's Batman. And like the second one, it got real dark and kind of weird, but that was more the villains. But he was still consistent as Batman.
Good point.
He's gonna be my all time Batman. But I could see people's argument for um, who my number two is and your number one is. I'm pretty sure I could see easily why people would say that. But he's gonna forever be my number one.
And all valid points. There's a reason he's in the top two for both of us. So, well said. Well, yeah, you're right. My number one, Batman, is Christian Bale.
Yep.
I feel like, for me, and I don't know if this was the intention, but you get him and you make a trilogy. You tell the birth story of how Batman starts.
Yeah.
And it rises out of an almost biblical setting where you have despair, you have poverty, you have the rich oppressing the poor.
Right.
You see him, but he goes out and he makes himself who he is.
Right.
He comes back. He realizes, from the mental perspective, we touched on that earlier, I have to be something greater than who I already am.
Right.
I have to make myself a symbol. And so you see the origin story there. I feel like Batman Begins, to me, out of all the Batman movies, is my absolute favorite.
You know, I'm gonna have to go Dark Knight, but a lot more people I'm hearing saying that's their favorite. And I watched it again not too long ago. I'm like, man, this is a really good movie. Mm-hmm. I think it's the only time you see Batman's transition from orphan to who he is.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's in between a story.
Right. And that's very interesting stuff. And you'd think that's going to be boring. I don't really care. I just want to put the suit on. But no, it was really impressive. And just Bill, when he is looking for those fights as practice early on in the movie. And, you know, the guards are dragging him away. And he's like, it's for protection. He was like, I don't need protection. He's like, no, not for you, for them.
Yep. And
just that look, like, I don't know, just a great scene. Just that his transformation with Liam Neeson's character Ra's al Ghul, figure out like he's so lost and he's angry and he wants to do right, and when he's put on the right track and he gets it. I need to be a symbol. I need to be something bigger. Man, that look, that determination, throughout the rest of the movies is fantastic.
Yeah, especially when it rises to the pinnacle. You know, when you finally see him for the first time, you know, you see him through the trials of getting the special suits and making the weapons, and you see the trials and errors he makes. But you finally get to a point where you see him jump to the top of the limousine, go down in the car. Who are you? And he just declares it. I'm Batman. To me, there's just no better moment.
Yeah.
So, yes, and The Dark Knight, great follow up. I think that, if at all possible, Batman gets overshadowed by Joker.
Yeah.
But because of the acting and the extraordinary measures Heath Ledger went to portray him, rest in peace. But I mean, you could also argue it was so good of an immersion that it made him lead to his own death, unfortunately.
Yeah. Sadly. But Bale did a great job of doing pretty good a job of both. And I love in especially Batman Begins when he is Bruce Wayne at the party and Ra's al Ghul pretty much calls him out and tells him the plan. That moment where he just starts like he switches from I'm dealing with Ra's al Ghul to wait a minute, I have to get these people out of my
The
place
drunk
because this guy
millionaire scene.
kill them all.
Yeah.
And he just that switch to this drunk, crazy, over the top billionaire, get out of my house, and then right back. Okay, now I'm Batman. That's just great acting. That's great acting.
Hard to portray both, and I think that's the key thing with acting as Batman.
Yeah.
Because you have to be both. So, wow. Well, good takes on all of that. I appreciate that our list came so close. As listeners can probably tell, Chris is more fascinated with Batman knowledge than I am. I'm probably a little more above a commoner when it comes to the Batman series, and so I feel honored to know that my top two are exactly the same, even if they were reversed.
Yeah. Good choices. Good choices.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks to our listeners. This was kind of a fun topic. You know, I know we kind of personify Batman a bit because we kind of switch from the fun to the serious, and I appreciate you taking the ride with us. Anything else to add, Chris? Any honorable mentions or someone else?
Clooney, I just can't take him serious. Honorable mention, you gotta Will Arnett for Lego Batman. It's a great voice, and just some of the humor. Val Kilmer, he was just missed my list because out of all the movies, I've probably seen Batman Forever the most, just because it was right when I was that right age of Batman is just the best. So I watched that movie over and over and over again. So he does a great Batman, but like you said, it's can't tell between his Batman and Bruce Wayne. But Val Kilmer probably just missed out on it though.
Okay. Excellent.
But I can't take Clooney seriously ever.
Like I said, totally understand that one. I debated 4 or 5 on him, but anyway, my honorable mention was Will Arnett as well. I know that for Will Arnett, he was actually really trained and hoping towards a career in drama, and he kind of failed at that initially. And his first major role was Arrested Development, which is a comedy TV series, and so he kind of embraced it from then on. I think he's fantastic as a comedic actor. I've seen him do some dramatic roles, and you kind of have to get used to it. And so I think that's why, well, at least this is my theory, why when they got him for the Lego Batman movie, they kind of embraced that as well. And they said, well, we can kind of tailor it around what his persona is and what the fans are used to. Right. But had his career gone a different track, he would have been just as good as a serious Batman or Bruce Wayne.
All right.
So a little history there. Theatrical. I did really like, I know this is not a movie, but I did like, and I hope I pronounced the name right, David Mazouz. He plays in this TV series Gotham.
Yeah.
Technically, he's Bruce Wayne as a child.
Right.
But I liked his persona of it, and I like how he's more mature than you think he might be as a teenager.
Yeah. Yeah. I caught the first couple seasons of it. He does a good job in it, and I could see the potential.
Yep.
I have some issues with the whole show overall, but he as Batman Bruce Wayne, yeah, it's good.
Right. Yeah, and we wanted to limit this to the movies and theater releases, of course. So, but anyway, I thought I'd bring that up real quickly. So that's our Batman. I think for different reasons. Chris and I like this as our favorite superhero. Looking forward to all the future releases. Was there anything else regards to National Championship or Batman we missed? Something you thought of later?
No, I can't, not off the top of my head, no.
We're perfect. We got it all.
We've covered a lot tonight.
Yeah, we did. We appreciate you guys tuning into us. We appreciate the leadership. Well, the ways that you guys can get a hold of us, and we want your feedback because you probably have some Batmans on your list, and you probably have some thoughts on the National Championship game. Perhaps I misspoke. Maybe I'll hear from some Bama fans about how many titles Bear Bryant actually won. How many national championships Alabama won? Controversially, yes or no? Yes, I'm opening it up. I would love to hear all the feedback from the Tide fans. The way you can do that, there's a couple of ways. We have a Facebook page, Florida Focus College Football Podcast. We also have an email address, FloridaFocusPodcast@yahoo.com. We are soon to have a YouTube channel. You guys can also look at our page on Twitter. There's not much there because we don't exercise it, but we will direct you back to Facebook or email.
Yes, do that stuff.
You guys, of course, are listening on iTunes, and we appreciate the 5-star ratings. That helps us. Tell your friends if you know a Gator, if you know a Seminole, if you know someone that's an SEC fan, you know someone's in the ACC. We'd appreciate a follow. I feel like we have a lot to offer. You guys are here with us, so we know that's already the case. So we want to sign off and say thank you for listening to Florida Focus College Football Podcast. Take care.
Bye.